Some yards stop people cold. Not because of expensive landscaping. Not because of a professional crew showing up every Tuesday. Because of one decision made in June that most gardeners were too afraid to make. June. The month every gardening channel tells you it is already too late. The month the so-called experts say the window has closed and you should just wait until next spring. The month millions of American gardeners walk past empty beds, shrug their shoulders and tell themselves they missed it. They're wrong. Dead wrong. Here is what those channels never tell you. June soil sits between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not a problem. That is the precise biological temperature where perennial root systems wake up, reach out, and spread faster than they ever would in cold April ground. The roots do not have to wait for the soil to warm up because the soil is already there. Already ready. Already working the moment you put something in the ground. You are not late. You are perfectly timed. 11 perennials. 1 month. A yard so full, so alive, so layered with color that by September your neighbors are slowing down on the sidewalk and wondering what happened over there. These plants spread on their own. They come back every single year. They multiply into free plants while you are sitting on the porch doing absolutely nothing. And because you planted in June, the ones that matter most, the ones that peak in late summer and explode in fall, are going to be hitting their stride at exactly the right moment. Hi viewers, here's a quick question before we go any further. Did you always believe June was too late to plant perennials? Drop a yes or a no in the comments right now. You would be genuinely surprised how many gardeners are sitting on this exact same myth. Now, plant 1 is the one that turns a problem slope into the most talked about corner of any yard on the street. And it does it without asking you for a single thing in return. Plant 1. Creeping phlox. Most people have never planted this. And every single one of them regrets it the first time they see a neighbor's slope buried in color while their own sits bare and defeated. That is what creeping phlox does. Picture a waterfall. But instead of water, it is electric pink, bright white, deep magenta, and soft lavender cascading down a slope, over a wall or along a pathway edge. That is creeping phlox in full performance. And unlike most bloomers that give 2 weeks and disappear, the foliage stays evergreen all year. Structure in January. Color in May. Ground coverage every single month in between.
Phlox. If you want your landscape to look like it came from a fairy tale, then this is the plant for you. No matter if you are on a hill or in the flatlands, in a desert or in a luscious green paradise, phlox will grow just about anywhere.
Phlox subulata is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. It spreads outward by 2 feet or more every season through trailing stems that root themselves wherever they touch the soil. No intervention needed. No help from anyone. It just moves. Here is what most gardening videos skip entirely. A slope covered in creeping phlox never needs mowing again. Municipalities planted on highway embankments specifically to eliminate erosion and eliminate maintenance permanently. That problem slope sitting in the yard right now, the one that has defeated every attempt, every season, every plan? This is the plant built for exactly that spot. Planted in full sun to light shade in well-draining soil. After it blooms, shear it back lightly. 1 cut. That single cut keeps it dense, encourages stronger spread the following season, and prevents it from going woody in the center. And here is the June advantage that nobody talks about. Warm soil means those trailing stems root themselves faster. The anchoring happens quicker. The spread begins sooner. An April planting on a cold slope waits weeks before the roots even activate. A June planting on warm ground starts working almost immediately. But if creeping phlox is the best ground hugger on this list, plant 2 is the best space filler. And it does something else entirely. It multiplies into free money. Plant 2. Daylily. This plant grows in Alaska. It grows in Florida. It grows in the Arizona desert and in the Minnesota frost. If that one fact does not tell everything needed about how unstoppable it is, nothing will.
They're long-lived, easy-care plants that thrive in almost any kind of soil. They can also be planted in full sun, 2-part shade, and they're rarely affected by any kind of insect pests or diseases.
Hemerocallis, the daylily, is hardy in USDA zones 1 through 11. The entire country. Every single state. There is almost no yard in America where this plant will not grow, spread, and perform year after year without a single complaint. The color range is staggering. Over 80,000 registered cultivars. Deep burgundy, soft peach, bright orange, pale lemon, creamy white, rich purple, vivid red, and bicolors that look almost too deliberate to be real. Plant a mix of early, mid-season and late varieties together and the result is continuous waves of bloom from early summer all the way through mid-fall. Every 4 to 5 years divide the clump. One plant gives 10 to 15 divisions. At $10 per plant at any nursery, one original daylily eventually produces over $100 worth of free plants straight from the yard. That is not gardening. That is investing. And here is what almost nobody mentions. Mass-planted daylilies shade the ground beneath them so completely that weeds cannot establish. Highway departments use them on roadsides across America for exactly this reason. That bare, weedy border is solved with one June planting decision. One critical warning. Daylilies are acutely toxic to cats. Every part of the plant, including the pollen. If cats spend time in the garden, skip this one entirely or fence it completely off. For dog owners, generally safe. Plant 2 fills the space. But plant 3 fills the space and changes who visits the yard forever. Plant 3. Bee balm. If a hummingbird has never hovered 2 feet from someone's face while they were sitting in their own backyard, this is the plant that makes that happen. And once it happens once, no garden ever goes without bee balm again. Monarda didyma is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. The flowers are spiky, tubular, and vivid. Blazing red, deep pink, rich purple, bright white. They look unlike anything else in the garden. And that tubular shape is not just beautiful. It is biologically designed for hummingbird feeding. Their beaks fit perfectly inside. They return every day. All season long. Monarchs visit. Tiger swallowtails visit. Bumblebees work it constantly. One planting of bee balm supports more wildlife species than almost anything else on this list combined. Something that genuinely surprises most people. Bee balm is in the mint family. The leaves are completely edible and brew into a tea that tastes remarkably similar to Earl Grey. Specifically the bergamot note that gives Earl Grey its character. A wildlife garden and a functional kitchen herb growing in the same plant at the same time. It spreads through underground rhizomes and fills a large space within 2 to 3 seasons. For best results, choose mildew-resistant cultivars. Jacob Klein for deep red. Raspberry wine for rich pink. Both perform beautifully across most American growing zones. 3 plants in. The slope is handled. The space is filling. The wildlife is arriving. But plant 4 is the one that embarrasses every gardener who believed June was too late. Because its peak performance does not even begin until after June planting. It blooms hardest when every other garden on the street is giving up. Plant 4. Black-eyed Susan Goldsturm. Golden yellow petals radiating out from a dark chocolate center that is almost black. The contrast is vivid, electric. Genuinely beautiful in a way that photographs do not fully capture. It has to be seen in a garden catching afternoon light to understand why people slow their cars down to look at it. And here is the part that makes it exceptional for June planting specifically. It blooms from July all the way through October. The peak is after the planting date. A June-planted Goldsturm is establishing roots right now and hitting full stride in August, exactly when most summer gardens start looking exhausted and finished. University studies confirm that the Goldsturm cultivar blooms longer and more prolifically than the standard species. This is not language from a seed catalog. This is documented horticultural research from institutions that test plant performance under real conditions. It spreads 2 ways simultaneously. Underground rhizomes push outward each season. And the seed heads drop seeds that germinate into brand new plants the following spring. Plant 1 in June. By year 2 the clump is visibly larger. By year 3 there is a sweeping colony that was never touched, never watered beyond rain, never fertilized beyond what the soil provided. Leave those seed heads standing through winter. Do not cut them down. Goldfinches, sparrows, and chickadees feed on them from October straight through February. The garden feeds the birds for free through the hardest months of the year. That is the native plant advantage working exactly as it was designed to. Goldsturm blooms when other gardens quit. But plant 5 blooms and fights the garden's battles underground at the same time. Plant 5. Yarrow. This plant grows in gravel. It grows in cracked, dry hardpan. It grows in places where 3 other things have already been tried and abandoned. And then it blooms for 6 straight months without asking for a single thing in return. Not water. Not fertilizer. Not attention. Nothing. Achillea millefolium is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. Flat-topped flower clusters in yellow, white, pink, coral, and deep red depending on the cultivar. Paprika and Strawberry Seduction are 2 standout varieties with rich warm tones that look stunning against silver foliage or cool blue flowers nearby. The foliage itself is feathery, silvery green, and intensely aromatic. which is precisely why deer and rabbits walk right past it without a second look. But here is the part that changes how a gardener thinks about this plant entirely. Yarrow releases natural compounds into the surrounding soil that actively suppress weed seed germination in the area around it. A built-in biological weed barrier working from the root system itself. No weed fabric. No extra mulch layer. The plant handles suppression on its own terms. And it goes further than that. Yarrow flowers attract parasitic wasps, lacewings, and hoverflies in significant numbers. Insects that prey on aphids, whiteflies, spider mites, and the soft-bodied pests that quietly destroy other plants all season long. While yarrow is blooming, it is running a biological pest management program that was never scheduled, never paid for, and never has to be thought about again. Rich, heavily amended soil makes yarrow floppy and disappointing. Poor, dry, rocky, neglected soil makes it bloom harder and stand taller than expected. Plant it in the worst spot. Give it the most neglected corner. That is not settling. That is matching the plant to its ideal conditions. And the results will prove it every single time. Yarrow works harder than almost any plant in the garden. But Plant 6 solves the problem that made so many gardeners want to quit entirely. Plant 6. Catmint Walker's Low. If deer have eaten through the garden 2 years running and patience has officially run out, this is the conversation that needed to happen before another dollar was ever spent at the garden center. Nepeta X Fossini Walker's Low is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8. Lavender blue flowers over silvery gray aromatic foliage from late spring through midsummer. It mounds to about 2 feet tall and cascades naturally over pathway edges, border fronts, and low retaining walls with zero effort or training. It finds its own shape. And its shape is elegant. Deer evaluate plants almost entirely by scent before they ever attempt to eat them. Catmint's aromatic oils are strong enough to repel deer at the approach stage. Before contact even happens. Before they are close enough to taste it. Unlike spray repellents that wash off in the first rain and need reapplying every 2 to 3 weeks all season long, this plant is the repellent. Always on. All day. Every day. All season. Year after year without a single reapplication. Cut it back by half immediately after the first bloom flush ends. Wait 3 weeks. It comes back fuller and more vigorous than before and produces a complete second wave of flowers that carries all the way through late summer. 2 full bloom seasons from one plant in 1 year at absolutely no additional cost. 6 plants in. The slope is covered. The space is filled. The deer problem is solved. The pest pressure is handled underground. But the next plant on this list stops people mid-stride on the sidewalk and makes them ask out loud what that is. And most American gardeners have never even heard of it. Plant 7. Hardy geranium. Also known as cranesbill. This is the most underused spreading perennial in American home gardening right now. Experienced gardeners have it in every border they own and do not talk about it much. Beginners have genuinely never heard of it. That gap between who knows it and who does not is precisely why it belongs on this list. This is not the annual geranium from the gas station parking lot. Not the grocery store display plant. Not the big box store entrance flower that dies at the first frost and needs replacing every single spring. That is a pelargonium. Completely different plant. Hardy geranium is a true perennial. It returns. It spreads. It divides into free plants. The value comparison is not even close. Geranium X Cantabrigiense is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8. Look specifically for Biacovo, soft white flowers with a delicate pink blush. Or Carmina for deeper rose pink. Both spread reliably without ever becoming the invasive problem that takes over a bed uninvited. Low mounding foliage that stays attractive all season. Rich bronze red in fall as temperatures drop. Semi-evergreen in zone 6 and warmer, contributing green ground cover structure through most of winter when everything around it has gone completely dormant. And here is the capability that makes it genuinely irreplaceable. Hardy geranium handles dry shade under large established trees better than almost any other spreading perennial of comparable beauty available in this country. That dark corner under the oak. Under the maple. Under the magnolia. The spot that has swallowed every plant ever tried there. Plant Geranium X Cantabrigiense this June and revisit that spot in September. It will not look the same. Shear it back hard after first bloom. One cut. Fresh foliage returns within 2 to 3 weeks. In most seasons, a genuine second round of flowers follows. Beyond that one annual cut, virtually no maintenance required. Hardy geranium solves the shade. But Plant 8 solves something that most gardeners did not even know was missing from their yard. Until the first still summer evening when it happens. Plant 8. Garden Phlox. There is one plant on this entire list that gets noticed before it gets seen. Not from a few feet away. From across the yard. On a still summer evening, standing near the back door with something cold in hand, the fragrance arrives before the eyes even locate where it is coming from. That moment, that specific, quiet, completely unexpected moment is why gardeners have grown this plant continuously for over 100 years. Phlox paniculata is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8. Large dome-shaped flower clusters, sometimes 6 inches or more across, packed tightly with individual florets in pink, purple, deep red, pure white, and striking bicolors. It blooms mid to late summer. Precisely when the spring flush is finished and the garden desperately needs something to step forward and carry it through to fall. On a still summer evening, that fragrance carries 30 feet from the plant. It fills outdoor seating areas. It comes through open windows into rooms nobody is even standing in. For gardeners who spend their evenings outside, this plant transforms that experience completely and permanently. Here is how to eliminate the one issue that gives garden phlox an undeserved bad reputation. Choose mildew-resistant cultivars and the issue largely disappears. David for pure clean white, one of the most mildew-resistant phlox cultivars ever developed. Robert Poor for vibrant purple-pink with exceptional vigor. Gina for soft lavender pink with mildew resistance verified in university performance trials across multiple American growing regions. Plant with adequate air circulation between plants. Water at the base rather than from overhead. Those two decisions together deliver years of spectacular, fragrant, trouble-free bloom. Cut stems and bring them indoors. Garden phlox in a vase fills an entire room with fragrance for a full week. A garden showpiece and a florist quality cut flower growing in the same plant. Garden phlox fills the evenings with fragrance. But plant 9 fills the yard with a spectacle so dramatic, so unexpected in late summer, that neighbors will assume someone was hired to make it happen. Plant 9. Goldenrod. Millions of Americans have blamed this plant for their fall allergies every single year for decades. They are wrong. Completely. Scientifically. Wrong. Goldenrod blooms at exactly the same time as ragweed. Ragweed is the actual allergy culprit. Ragweed produces lightweight, wind-carried pollen that travels through the air, enters the sinuses, and triggers the immune system. Goldenrod produces heavy, sticky pollen that is carried exclusively by insects, from flower to flower. It cannot become airborne. It physically cannot enter the sinuses. Goldenrod has never caused a single allergy reaction in the history of its existence. It simply bloomed nearby while ragweed did the damage and took the blame for it. One of the greatest cases of mistaken identity in American gardening history. Solidago rugosa fireworks is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9. The name is not exaggeration. The flower stems arch outward and downward in long, graceful sprays covered in tiny golden yellow flowers that radiate in every direction exactly like fireworks frozen mid-explosion. Nothing else in the fall garden has a silhouette quite like it. It blooms late summer through fall. September and October in most zones. Which makes it one of the most strategically valuable plants on this entire list. Most perennials peak in June and July. By September, options are thin. Goldenrod fills that late-season gap with bold, vivid golden color precisely when it is needed most. It supports over 100 species of native bees, butterflies, and beneficial insects. Growing it is one of the most direct contributions a home gardener can make to the local insect ecosystem that every food crop and flowering plant in the area depends on. 9 plants. 9 reasons the June yard transforms by September. But the last 2 on this list do something none of the first 9 can do. One makes every plant around it look more expensive. The other makes October feel like the best month in the entire yard. Do not stop now. Plant 10. Lamb's ear. Children stop when they pass it. Adults stop. Complete strangers reach down without being invited to. Stachys byzantina is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8. The leaves are covered in a dense layer of soft silvery white woolly hair that feels precisely like its name suggests. Exactly that soft. Exactly that gentle. And that physical sensation creates a memory. The kind of memory that brings people back to a yard. The kind that makes an outdoor space genuinely unforgettable. Beyond the texture, the silver-white foliage creates visual contrast against virtually every other color in the garden. It makes purple flowers look deeper. It makes pink flowers softer. It makes red flowers more vivid and saturated. Landscape designers use it as a living color amplifier. A foliage plant that makes every single plant surrounding it perform better visually. The color is not pigment. It is the physical density of the hair structure on the leaf surface reflecting light back outward. And that same dense mat of tiny fibers dramatically reduces moisture evaporation from the leaf in heat and drought. Lamb's ear is not just drought-tolerant by accident. It is drought-engineered at a cellular level. In the hottest, driest weeks of an American summer, while other plants are struggling, lamb's ear is managing its own water loss with a biological system more sophisticated than anything that could be sprayed on it. It spreads through horizontal surface stems that extend outward and root themselves as they travel. It fills ground cover gaps steadily. It suppresses weeds as its dense foliage closes in. In zones 6 and warmer it remains semi-evergreen through winter, providing silver-white structure during the months when everything around it has gone gray and bare. Plant it as a flowing silver edge along pathways. Use it as a weed-suppressing ground cover between taller perennials. Run it as a connecting ribbon between color groupings that would otherwise look unrelated. It unifies a border. It makes the whole planting feel intentional, considered, and designed. And it does all of that while requiring almost nothing in return. Lamb's ear makes everything around it look better. But Plant 11 makes the entire season feel worth it. In one single October moment that nobody who has experienced it ever forgets. Plant 11. New England Aster. Every plant on this list earns its place from June through summer. This one earns its place in October, when the first cold nights arrive. When everything else is slowing down, browning out, and preparing to go dormant. When most gardens have already surrendered to fall. This plant explodes. Symphyotrichum novi anglii is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8. Daisy-like flowers in deep violet purple, rich lavender, bright pink, and pure white with golden yellow centers that glow in the lower autumn light. The color does not wash out and fall the way so many plants do. It deepens. It saturates. It performs in September and October with the same intensity that summer plants perform in June. That is extraordinarily rare. Asters are among the very last reliable nectar sources available to monarch butterflies before they complete their full migration journey to Mexico. Research from Monarch Watch and multiple university entomology departments documents New England aster as a critical late-season fueling station on the eastern and central monarch flyways. Growing asters is one of the most direct, most concrete contributions a home gardener can make to monarch butterfly survival. In late May, pinch every stem back by half. In late June, pinch back by half again. 2 pinches. That is all. Those 2 cuts create a plant with dramatically more branching, dramatically more flower stems, and a dense compact self-supporting mound that does not need staking. Gardeners who skip this step get a plant that flops open in the center. Gardeners who do it get a fall spectacle that stops every person who walks past the yard. And now, the argument that changes everything about how June planting gets understood. June soil sits between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit across most American growing zones. That is the precise biological temperature where rhizomes spread fastest, where lateral root movement is most aggressive, where the underground network that feeds and expands these plants operates at full capacity. An April planting waits weeks for the soil to reach that temperature. A June planting starts there. The engine is already running the moment the plant goes in the ground. June-planted perennials also catch the longest days of the year. That extended light exposure drives the photosynthetic activity that fuels root spread. More light means more energy. More energy means faster establishment. Faster establishment means a plant that is genuinely ready to perform before the first frost arrives. The gardeners who believe June is too late are the ones with bare yards in September. The gardeners who plant in June are the ones with asters exploding in October and goldenrod lighting up the border in gold when everything else has gone quiet. You are not late. You never were. Now, 3 rules before anything goes in the ground. These take less than 3 minutes and they determine whether everything planted this June thrives or merely survives. Rule 1. Water deeply, not daily. The single biggest mistake made with June plantings is surface watering in summer heat. A shallow daily sprinkle keeps moisture at the top of the soil. The roots follow moisture. Surface moisture means surface roots. Surface roots are vulnerable to heat, drought, and stress. Deep watering twice a week drives moisture down into the soil profile. The roots follow it down. Deep roots build resilience. Deep roots are the difference between a plant that survives summer and one that explodes through fall. Rule 2. Mulch is not optional in June. 2 inches of mulch applied around every plant at planting time holds the soil moisture that warm temperature root systems need to spread aggressively. Without it, summer heat pulls moisture from the soil surface faster than watering can replace it. With it, the soil stays consistently moist between waterings and root spread accelerates dramatically. One afternoon with a bag of mulch changes the trajectory of everything planted this month. Rule 3. Leave the seed head standing in fall. Every autumn the instinct is to cut everything down, clean it up, make it look tidy. Resist that instinct completely. The seed heads are the food source that goldfinches, sparrows, and chickadees depend on through winter. They are the overwintering habitat that beneficial insects need to complete their life cycles and return to the garden next spring as the pest control team that was never hired and never paid for. They are the natural reseeding mechanism that multiplies plants for free while the ground is frozen solid. Leave them standing. The garden will be more alive, more connected, and more naturally abundant for it. And one last thing. Picture a morning in October. There is a jacket on now because the mornings are cool. Coffee in hand. The asters are not fading. They are not winding down. They are burning. Deep violet and rich lavender exploding across the border in colors so saturated they look almost too vivid to be real. And then a monarch butterfly lands. Right there. On those asters. Pausing for a moment before continuing the long journey south. Every plant put in the ground this June made that moment possible. The creeping phlox anchoring the slope. The daylilies multiplying in the border. The bee balm bringing the hummingbirds. The goldenrod lighting up the back corner in gold. The asters holding the final color of the season like they were built for exactly this. Because they were. That is not just a garden. That is a decision made in June that paid off in October. And will keep paying off every single season after this one, without starting over, without replacing, without spending another dollar on something that disappears the moment the first frost arrives. Now, if this video gave even one plant worth putting in the ground this June, subscribe right now. Because next week the topic is the 7 shrubs that do what perennials cannot. The ones that give the garden its backbone, its structure, its reason to look intentional in every single month of the year, including the ones when nothing is blooming. One of them changes color on its own in September without being touched. Another one stops deer before they ever get close enough to cause damage. And a third one has a fragrance in May so powerful it comes through open windows from 30 feet away. That video goes up next week. Subscribe now and make sure it actually finds you. Because the gardeners who watch it are the ones whose yards look completely different by this time next year. Be one of them.